In 1953, General Motors released the first generation Chevrolet Corvette. It's small, light, 6-cylinder, 2-seater, sporty, fun sports car. And in 1955, as Ford and Chevy will do with each other, Ford released their competitor to the Corvette, the Thunderbird. 1955 was the first year of the Thunderbird. And just like the Chevy, it was a hit. In fact, for a couple of years, the Thunderbird actually outsold the Corvette. Yeah, that's not the case now. Corvette's still around and T-Bird isn't. Now, since 1955, Ford continued to update the Thunderbird, and it went through 10 different generations before finally coming to an end in 1997. But in 2002, Ford decided to bring it back and try once again. But this time, they decided to go back in time when it came to how to style the car. That is what we have here today. This is a 2005, the final model year, 50th anniversary edition Ford Thunderbird. How's it going, folks? I hope you're doing great today. If you don't already know, I'm Andy, and this is That Car Vlog channel. And like I said, we're going to take a look today at this 2005 50th anniversary, also final model year, Ford Thunderbird. I'm going to take you on a full tour inside and out, show you all the features, powertrain and whatnot, and then we'll get this thing out onto the road and see just what it's like there out on the pavement. Before we begin, special thanks to West Chevrolet of Alcoa, Tennessee for providing the vehicle for today's review. Once you're done watching this video, be sure to check the description below for a link to their website where you can check out their great inventory. All right, back to the 50th anniversary Ford Thunderbird. Now, as always, we'll start on the outside, look at the exterior styling of the car, and I'm going to point out to you all the ways in which Ford threw back to the 1955 model when designing this vehicle. So first, looking at the front end, here's your headlights. They are circular. The top half is your headlight, bottom half is your signal. This, of course, is reminiscent of the round headlights on the first 55 model. Down here, you've got your egg crate front grille, and you got your fog lights that are kind of integrated into it there. You can see them right there. Once again, trying to throw back to that 55 design. Another throwback is up here on the hood. You do have this hood scoop, although on the final generation car, whether it's 50th anniversary or just a base car, this is non-functional. It's simply for decoration. However, your 50th anniversary did get the chrome trim here, unlike your base model car. Very nice looking there. Going over here to the side of the car on the fender, now your 55 had a vent on the fender pretty much right here in this location, and your base 02 to 05 Thunderbird has a fake vent right here. For the 50th anniversary edition, they decided to ditch that fake vent and instead put this piece in here that says 50th anniversary 1955 to 2005. I think that's a really nice touch for this car. While we're over here close to the body looking at this color, I don't know if the camera's going to do it justice. This is a special cashmere color that they used on the 50th anniversary edition. They had a few more colors that looked good, but I think this one looks really nice, looks really classy. You see right here, all of your 11th generation Thunderbirds had this chrome trim all the way around the windshield from one side to the other. Once again, think it looks really nice. It's not overdone. The chrome on this car is not overdone. It's very subtle and only in a few places. And once again, it's a nice classy look. As we continue down the side, here you have your removable hardtop. These were all convertibles. Here you have your removable hardtop with those iconic portal windows, just like the 55. And once again, like I said, this is a removable hardtop, and underneath this cover in the rear, there is a soft top. However, that's going to stay on for this video because I'm doing this alone, and that is not a one-person job. Over here, you can see it's got Thunderbird right here on the fender on both sides. Looks really nice in that Thunderbird script. Down here, the 16-spoke, 17-inch wheels you get on this particular model of the Thunderbird. I think once again those are a nice classy look. If we take a step back and look at the side profile overall, this actually is a pretty good looking car, and you can definitely kind of see how they styled it as a modern version of the original 55. Here on the rear, once again, you can see we have circular lights on the back. So you have your tail brake and turn here and your reverse light on the bottom. And you see there is kind of this bulge in the fender, or this haunch kind of, that mates up with the shape of the tail light. It looks really good. This is probably about as close as you're gonna get though to the fins from the original car, because I'm pretty sure fins aren't one of those things that are allowed anymore. Here in the middle of the trunk and also on the hood, you got your big, long Thunderbird logo right here. It looks really nice. Stepping back from there, that is actually a pretty decent looking rear end. There's not a lot going on, but it's nice, and it's, once again, kind of classy. I'm going to use that word classy a lot in this video. All right, before we get into the Thunderbird, let's talk about the key situation. So once again, this was 02 to 05. So you're talking about Ford from the late 90s and 2000s. This is your key situation. You just get a standard steel key with a black gripper with a Ford logo on it. And you get the standard Ford key fob that was used on pretty much all models for many, many years in the late 90s and 2000s, with 4 buttons on it: lock, unlock, panic, and your trunk release. All right, let's climb on into the T-Bird now. So we open the door up, and we'll look first here, of course, at the interior door card. So I must say, this is actually a pretty nice door card in this car. Now, of course, your base models, a lot of them had black with some, you know, brushed aluminum looking trim in it. But this, of course, is a cashmere 50th anniversary edition, so it's a little more upscale, a little nicer. You do have this nice ribbing here, which is in one shade cashmere color. Right here, you get a slightly lighter shade. Way up here, it's darker. It's sort of soft touch, but they're still hard underneath it. You can feel that. This here is even less soft, still hard plastic. You get your hard plastic speaker grill right here. You get a storage pocket down here, which you can see there's my hand for scale. It's not large. Up here in between the tan and brown pieces is this piece of trim. Now, normally this is a brushed aluminum looking thing. It's kind of shiny silver. But in your 50th anniversary, if we zoom in, I don't know if the camera's going to show it to you, it actually has a whole bunch of itsy bitsy tiny Thunderbird logos all the way through it. It's kind of cool. Get a chrome door handle there. You get some Ford parts bin switchgear for the windows and power locks. This is pretty much every Ford company vehicle for the time. Same shape, same size. You better look at these to make sure you know what you're actually pushing. You do have auto down on your driver window, but not auto up. Now you're gonna see right here, there's what seems like just this random keyhole in the door. This is actually your trunk release. So if you push this button right here, that releases your trunk and you can get right in. But say for some reason you don't want anybody in there at all, you can just stick your ignition key in there and turn it, and now it can't be pushed at all, unless somebody has the key and unlocks it. As we start to get actually into the car, you look at the door sill here. It's got this little bitty plate here. It should have been bigger. I've heard another journalist say they'd like to see it bigger, and I do kind of agree. You see it's got the Ford Thunderbird in it. And of course, it's just like the trim on the doors and dash. It's got more of those little bitty Thunderbird logos all over it. Here is your driver's seat. Now it has some bolstering. It's not insane, but it is there. It's got similar ribbing to the doors. Decent, nice looking design. You do have a power slider function, but that is the only power thing you get in this car. It is manual tilting back. All right, starting on the left side of the steering wheel, looking at the dash. Now here we have our headlight controls. Once again, standard Ford switchgear. Here, of course, is your gauge dimmer. Here's your headlight controls. You got, of course, off, parking lights, and headlights. And then over here, this function, this auto, this is for the auto lamp system. This setting, just like the Twilight setting on your GMs, is for automatic headlights. When the car is running and the light outside is low enough, it'll automatically turn them on, and of course turn them off when it gets bright enough. And this simply adjusts the amount of time that it'll wait to turn those off once you kill the car. Down here on the bottom, you have a traction off button for some reason. That's all you really get on this side. Looking straight on at the steering wheel, now this is definitely not the most attractive steering wheel that there is, but it was, you know, early 2000s. You do have more standard Ford switchgear for your cruise control over here, radio and phone over here. Nice Thunderbird logo in the middle. And I do like that this seems like a stitched leather wrapped wheel. I don't know if it actually is leather wrapped or not, but it looks nice. And the top here is this contrasting color, which in this case actually matches the exterior body color. You maybe kind of see some of the metallic stuff going on in that cashmere outside color. Now, another thing to note about the steering wheel is look at the position it's in now. When I stick the key in the ignition, it automatically lowers the wheel to what I assume is driving height. When you pull the key out, it raises it up to make it easier to get in and out of the car. That's actually kind of a nice touch. Pretty smart, Ford. Over here in the center stack, nothing really insanely special. You do have your typical climate vents up here. Here's your AM/FM stereo with 6-disc in-dash CD changer. Really nice that that's not in the trunk. It's a decent sounding stereo. It's not high end. It's not the best thing in the world, but it is decent. I have played with it a little bit. It sounds good. Down here, here's your climate control, and it is actually dual zone climate control. You see I push dual there. It lights up and puts your temperature on both sides. If I hit it again, it takes that temperature reading away from the passenger side. Use your fan control right here, temperature adjust. And interestingly, it goes as low as 60, then you jump to 65, and then you can go up by 1 degree at a time from there. That's kind of strange. Most cars just do it 1 degree at a time all the way to min and max, but whatever. Of course, you have your auto button. Here's a separate off button. Here's your directional control, defrosters, AC recirc, and another temp switch for the passenger side. Down below that, you get a cigarette lighter, which doubles as a power port because even in the early 2000s, we had to be able to smoke. To the right of that is another 12-volt round port, so you can charge up to 2 devices or maybe a few more with the appropriate adapters. Here is a control for your soft top. Once again, like I said, this does have a removable hard top, underneath which there is a soft top. This is how you control that. And here's your passenger airbag cutoff. So if you put a kid in your passenger seat, you can stick your key in there and turn that off, so the airbag doesn't hurt them in the event of a collision. Also, on this 50th anniversary, you get these nice heated seats with 2 different levels. Here's level 1, here's level 2. Behind that, here's your automatic shifter for your 5-speed automatic transmission. Just straight forward and back. You can bump it over here into manual and go up and down yourself, choose which gear you want. The Ford calls this the Select Shift Auto transmission. Behind that shifter, you do get dual cup holders. They're not big though. This is a 16.9 ounce bottle of water, and it is pretty much a perfect fit. I don't think you're even gonna get a 20 ounce in here. Once again, early 2000s, cup holders weren't exactly our focus in this car. And of course, to the right of that, you get a regular manual parking brake lever, which is nice. No electronics. Didn't have that crap back in 05. Kind of wish we still didn't. Now, if we look at this center console area as a whole, it is just cheap Ford plastic. This may have been a more upscale Ford model, but still, the whole thing is cheap plastic. This is Ford in the 90s and early 2000s. This is just how things were built. And behind that, we have what has to be the smallest center console I've ever seen. Now, you do get a little bit of padding on the armrest, although you can still tell. You can hit it, you can still tell. It's not the greatest thing, but it's there. It is padded. We pull up on this thing, you see this lid is incredibly thick. It's interesting. And it opens up to what has to be the smallest center console I've ever seen. In fact, there's a lot of things that won't fit in this. I actually have an assortment of things that do not fit in this center console. Here is a 16.9 ounce bottle of water. Does not fit. Here's my Galaxy S23 Ultra, and if it wasn't for the indentation in the lid of the console, that probably wouldn't fit either. And here is a standard sized iPhone 8 with an OtterBox. Once again, if it wasn't for that open part of the lid, it also probably would not fit. So definitely not the biggest center console storage area. This is really small. This is my hand and I'm touching the bottom. All right, now it's a fist shape. That's really small. Up here we have a typical rear view mirror. This was of course many years before people started making rear view mirror camera systems. This is what you got. Up here is your typical dome lighting controls. You got, you know, your selector to determine whether you want these turned on with the door or not at all. And here are your reading lights off to the side, and I like that these are adjustable in every direction. You can point this anywhere you want it. Forward, backward, left, right. Those have been on for a minute, so they are actually really hot. Whew, okay. Same thing on the passenger side though. Okay, done touching those. And above that is your, what would be considered home link garage door buttons over that. They seem kind of randomly placed here though. That's interesting. Hold down the center visor. You do get a mirror here, but no light. It's a tiny little mirror, but it's a tiny visor. Over here on the passenger side, that special trim with the little T-Bird logos continues over here. And you get this Thunderbird logo with 50th anniversary underneath it. Nice touch for this car. Open up the glove box down here. It's not insanely huge, but it's enough to store things. In here, you're gonna find this T-handle tool. This is T-Bird branded, as you can see, and this is the tool you're going to need for removing this hard top. Once again, not coming off because it's a two-person job with a tool. Otherwise, it's a pretty typical glove box. Nothing special to see here, except for this plaque right here on the inside of the glove box door, reading number 660 of 1500. Ford only made 1500 50th anniversary editions. That's out of the roughly 9,000 cars sold in 2005. 1,500 of these were 50th anniversary. This particular car is number 660. So this car is sort of rare. I mean, it's not super rare like one of 100 or one of 500, but still one of 1,500 50th anniversary T-Birds. It's kind of a rare car. It's kind of neat. Coming back up here behind the steering wheel, you've got your gauge cluster, and there's really not a lot special about it. Now, it is a good looking gauge cluster. I think it's kind of a mix of sporty and classy. It's got those nice cream colored gauges with the blue needles there on the, you see as I rev at the tach, the blue needles, they look really good. Otherwise, there's really nothing special here. No displays or anything. This again is 05. The only display you get is this one down here in the left side corner, and all it gives you is your overall odometer, your trip A and B, and your gear shift position. Now, if we go in behind these seats that can only be tilted forward manually, you get a little bit of extra storage behind these seats. Now, not a heck of a lot. You're not getting a lot back here. You might get a couple of backpacks back here, but that's about it. Now, you do get a couple of speaker grills back here. You can see those right there. And this panel in the center that, again, has that nice Thunderbird logo right in the middle of it. Interestingly, even though it is a two-seater car, you do still get a nice map pocket on both seats. Kind of nice. And right here, you see the rear shelf of the vehicle, which, remember I said this is a removable hardtop with a soft top underneath it. So this right here is actually the piece that covers that soft top in the area that it stores in when you've got the hardtop in place, so it doesn't look bad through the rear window. Now, if you look a little more closely, you're gonna see there's some snaps on this plastic paneling here in the back. That is because there's actually a cover that is currently in the trunk, you'll see that in a second, that's used to cover up this area when you've got no top on and you want to cruise as a convertible, but you still don't want that to look bad or things to fall into it. All right, now I want to get into the trunk, but first let's talk about how you get into the trunk. Now, of course, you have a few choices. You can push the button on the door, that'll open it up. You do also have a button here, the blue one on your key fob. Hit that, and it'll open the trunk up as well. But what if the battery of your car is dead, or you can't get into the car, and you don't have the fob, or you need to be able to get into it with a non-power option? How do you do it then? I looked all over the outside of this car. I could not find a manual keyhole. But then I went back inside because I remembered some cars put things inside. So if we pull the driver's seat forward and look down low in the carpeted area, you're going to see this keyhole. And above this keyhole, there is a picture of a car with an open trunk. But not just any car. It's a T-Bird. You can see the little portal window there on the back of the car. Nice attention to detail, Ford. Anyway, you stick your ignition key in this hole, turn it to the right, and in real time, we're going to go back here and pull open the trunk lid. That's really cool. Kind of smart on Ford. They didn't put an ugly keyhole on the back, but you still have a backup keyed entry into the rear trunk. Nice thinking. All right, so let's actually get into the trunk now. We open this up, and now there's actually a lot of stuff in here. So first, here are your factory Thunderbird floor mats. Now the current dealer, I don't know if it's the dealer or the owner, but someone took them out, put them back here. And as you can see, they got the Thunderbird logo right there in them. They look really, really nice. We're gonna set these aside kind of gently. And there's actually some pretty neat stuff in the back of this car. Now here we have what I was talking about a second ago. So this is the soft cover that covers your soft top when you have it open and no hard top. It's really nice, it's fabric, it folds in half to store in the trunk. And that's going to keep that area from being open and ugly while you're driving around topless. Topless car, that is. Lay that down. Here we have a stand with wheels on it. This stand is actually for your hardtop. So you can take that off. It sits on this stand. It protects it from getting messed up. It rolls around. You can roll it into the garage on wheels. And you don't have to worry about where you're going to put it or if it's going to get damaged. Now you get a couple of covers here. I know one of these is most likely to put over the hardtop once it's off. So, you definitely want to protect that. It's got nice paint on it, and I'm sure you don't want to have to repair that. Now here's the downside of this cargo area. It's wide, it's kind of long, but it's not deep. That's my backpack standing up. You can see it standing up. You have to lay it down to make it fit, and hopefully it's not a thick backpack or it's not going to fit. As we come in closer to the trunk, you're going to see once again just how shallow this thing is. It's not incredibly deep at all. Now you do get a little bit more storage back here. You can see it kind of goes inwards here. One benefit of this cargo area is that whether you have the top up or down, you get the same amount of cargo space, which I believe is less than 10 cubic feet. It's not huge, but at least when the soft top is down, it doesn't compromise any of your already limited cargo space. Now we can pick up on the cargo floor here, and it opens up to your spare tire, as well as your battery mounted back here and your fuse box. Now here's something interesting stored over here on the side next to the spare tire. A rear deck care kit. So this is interesting. This is a kit with it looks like a bunch of protective strips and some cleaning solution to lay down on the rear deck of your car before you put the hardtop back in place to protect your car's paint from getting damaged by its own hardtop. Interesting, but neat that they included something like that. All right, now let's get into the hood to talk about the powertrain in your Ford Thunderbird. Now, you only had one engine option and one transmission option. What you're looking at here is a 3.9 liter V8 engine. Now, like I said a second ago, this car ran from 02 to 05. In 2002, your 3.9 liter produced 252 horsepower and 267 pound-feet of torque. So not exactly amazing numbers, not even for 2002. Now for 03 through 05, Ford kind of got it together a little bit more and added some power to this engine and got it up to 280 horsepower, 286 pound-feet of torque. So still not a lot of power, still not the fastest thing in the world. Now all of these, once again, were mated to a 5-speed automatic transmission. For 03 and up, it did include that select shift that I showed you a second ago where you can change the gears manually off to the side. Now according to the research I did online, what I came up with as far as 0 to 60 was about 6.5 seconds. So I wouldn't call it slow per se, but I also wouldn't call it fast. It's Well, we're gonna see in a minute what it feels like. Now, all these were rear-wheel drive cars, no such thing as front-wheel drive. So I guess that might have added a little bit of sporty benefit to it. Now, as far as pricing is concerned, looking back at 2002, these cars topped out at an MSRP of just under $40,000. Adjust that for inflation in 2023 numbers, you're looking at over $67,000 in 2023 numbers for this Ford Thunderbird. All right, I think we've done enough talking outside of the car. Let's jump inside of this thing and see what it's actually like to drive this thing. All right, time to get out here on the road in the 2005 50th anniversary Ford Thunderbird. Now, you may wonder, what is a 33-year-old car enthusiast doing driving and reviewing a grandpa looking car like this? Well, I think it is cool in a few ways, and we'll get to that in a minute. Let's talk about initial driving impressions. First of all, comfort. As far as comfort is concerned, the seats are decently comfortable. I will say that the lower part of the seat, it doesn't seem like it's long enough to support your entire leg, so you may be lacking some comfort and support in that area as well. Although overall, they are still decently comfortable seats. I mean, this is, while they're not the most comfortable, they're also not the most grippy or sporty seats there are. Once again, this isn't a sports car so much as a GT cruiser car, I think you could call it. Something you and the other half can get in and just take a drive up in the mountains with the top down and just enjoy the day. As far as visibility is concerned, looking out the rear view mirror, it's pretty good. There's nothing to complain about there. Same thing with the side windows. The view out of the hood is pretty neat. You do get right there in the center of that fake air intake scoop. And then of course you get those humps, one on either side, that run down and meet up with the headlights. So the hood is a pretty neat shape, and it's kind of neat to look out over. Now, as far as ride quality is concerned, it's not the smoothest thing in the world, but it's also not an ultra luxury car, so it's not what you expect. But at the same time, it's not as harsh as what you'd expect from a sports car, which once again, this isn't. This doesn't have the stiff sports car handling suspension like you get on, well, a sports car. And speaking of handling, let's go take this turn here, and although the steering is relatively responsive, this thing does definitely have some body roll. This definitely does not have a stiff sports car type handling suspension. That's just not what this thing was designed to be. So if you're gonna take a turn, you are definitely gonna feel some body roll. As far as steering responsiveness, there might be a little bit of vagueness on center. It's not bad. It's not like you tilt the wheel and it doesn't do anything. It's decently responsive, but you can still feel this is a relatively floaty vehicle. Once again, not sports car. You're not going to take this thing to the track. You're probably not even going to take this thing up to the tail of the dragon. But you may take it into the mountains just to do some weekend cruising with the other half. Now, without trying to get on it too hard, as far as just general acceleration, it's all right. It's not terrible. It has a V8, so it has plenty of power. This thing does have 280 horsepower. So it's not like it can't accelerate, it just can't accelerate extremely quickly. But it's not so slow that you're going to be dangerous out in traffic. It does have plenty of power to get up on the highway, to pass cars, whatever you need to do. But because this is a car enthusiast channel, we are of course going to see what the acceleration is in this thing. I've just downloaded another acceleration timer app, and we're going to give that a shot now. Now, like I said, the research that I did pointed out this thing being roughly a 6.5, 0 to 60. And I'm going to try to use this app and see just how close we can get to that. Now, this is the GPS race timer app from the Google Play Store. That's literally what it's called, GPS race timer. All right, we're sitting still. Let's give it a little bit of brake boost and go. Now that V8 engine does make some noise when you're pulling hard. I just got a 0 to 60 of 8.2 seconds. Now that may be just ever so slightly uphill, but it felt flat enough. But 8.2 seconds to 60 miles per hour is what I got on that test ride. So what are my impressions of this car? I think it has some upsides and it has some downsides. One, it is a nice, relatively comfortable cruiser car. Now you do have to realize that this is a Ford from the early 2000s. So you get a lot of cheap stuff and cheap plastic. You get some Ford parts being switchgear, things like that. I think for a car its size, it could stand to have a little bit more interior room. Not necessarily for rear seats, although that might be a welcome addition for some people. But I think maybe if it had been engineered differently, we could have gotten a little bit more cargo space in the rear. You know, this is a relatively big two-door car. It is based on the Lincoln LS sedan of its time. So a two-door GT cruiser car of sorts based on a four-door sedan that has compromised cargo space and somewhat slightly compromised interior room. Slightly shorter people might be okay, but I feel like I'm going to be feeling this particular degree of knee bending after about an hour or so. And that could just be me. My knees quite honestly hate me when I drive cars for long periods of time, and I don't care, I do it anyway. I think the cool factor for this car is the way that Ford paid homage to the original 1955 with the modernized exterior styling. You get the round headlights and taillights just like the car, the egg crate grille, you get the portal windows and the hardtop, and you get that classic Thunderbird logo all over the place. And I really think that right there is the cool part of this car. It's not fast, it doesn't handle very well, you know, it's not for sporty driving. Spirited driving is not what you buy this thing for. So that being said, who is this car for? Well, I tend to agree with a lot of journalists out there who say that this car is for old people. Because when you take a look at this versus the 55, you're going to see that this is not a car that was built to go after the young generations back in the early 2000s. Everything about this car is going to remind the older generations of what the 55 was like. And now they can buy a modern one with CD player, cruise control, you know, dual zone AC, that kind of thing, airbags, you know, safety devices, although they were, you know, still pretty early safety devices being an '05 car, but still, this is definitely not a car for the younger generation. When this final 11th generation Thunderbird came out, I was, you know, almost 12 years old. As a member of that younger generation, I can still appreciate the car because, you know, it does have some neatness about it. Now, would I, you know, a guy in his early 30s, buy this car? Probably not. To be perfectly honest, I probably wouldn't. Have I enjoyed my time driving it? Yeah, I kind of have actually, mainly because I wanted to know what it was all about. And I definitely wanted to be able to see up close and personal the comparisons to the original 55 T-Bird. I think Ford did a decent job, especially on the exterior, designing this thing to pay homage to that 55. I think they did a good job on the outside. It's a decent looking car. Not everyone's going to agree with me on that, and that's just fine. But all in all, if you're older, or, I mean, you don't have to be, but you're looking for a nice, relatively comfortable car just to take your other half, your significant other into the mountains for a cruise, you know, a picnic, you know, like we used to do way, way, way back when, whatever, then yeah, this may be the car for you. But if you're looking for something to go fast, to take corners, to lay rubber and get awesome 0 to 60 times, that's not what this is about. So don't buy this with that expectation. It's not slow, but it's not fast either. It's right there in the middle. All right, so that's just about going to do it for the 2005 50th anniversary edition Ford Thunderbird, the best version of the final year of the final generation Ford Thunderbird. This really is a neat car. I'm not going to stand here and call it lame because it's really not. It is a neat car. It's got great styling. You can definitely tell how they pulled the styling of the 55 into the modern era to make a modern version of a 55. It really is a decent looking car. And I think this 50th anniversary edition in this cashmere color with the hardtop and portal windows really is a nice, classy looking vehicle. Now, like I said before, as a younger person, 33, I don't think I would buy this for myself, but if you're a little bit older, it's just you and the wife, and you want something to go cruising in the mountains on the weekend, I think this is probably a really great choice. It's got some nice, decently smooth V8 power, rear wheel drive. It's mostly comfortable inside, and it has pretty much everything as far as amenities that you're gonna expect for a car from 2005. Maybe a little bit more with the dual zone climate control. And although cargo space could be better, admittedly, if you really look in the trunk, you can probably throw a couple, 2, 3, maybe even 4 duffel bags in there and go on a weekend trip, just you and your significant other. Anyways, folks, that's all I've got for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I definitely enjoyed making it and finding out once and for all what this thing is all about. If you like this video and want to see more from me, go back to the main channel page and check out what else I've got on the channel. I got a bunch more neat car reviews and several more good ones hopefully coming up after this. If you like what you see on the channel, consider subscribing. Also, don't forget to follow over on Facebook and Instagram at That Car Vlog channel. It's another great way to get notified when videos go up on the channel. Once again, special thanks to West Chevrolet of Alcoa, Tennessee for providing this Thunderbird for today's review. Once you get done here, make sure to go down to the description below, click on the link down there to go to their website. Anyways, thanks y'all so much for watching. You make sure to have a good day.